The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, a semi-gloomy Tuesday here in Southern California, but it's not gloomy because we have a few guests that I like to compare to a bottle of wine, where you put them away and you save them for a special time, and then you open them and everybody has a glass, and it's just fantastic. Here's one of those guests on the Subway Fresh Tech Hotline, our old friend Chris Connelly. What's happening?
Hey, I'm well. Thank you for comparing me to a bottle of wine. I have high citrus notes and an oak finish.
Well, I mean, this is like pop culture is exploding right now.
No question about it.
I would argue that Charlie Sheen has taken the internet to another level. He's taken the internet to places that I didn't know it could go. Would you agree?
You would have thought that after Mel Gibson or Britney Spears being sort of 24/7 tracked on TMZ that no one could reach those heights, or no one could ascend even higher. But yeah, Charlie has commandeered the airwaves like the dictator for life on state-run television behind the Iron Curtain.
Do you feel? I mean, you've been out here. You know the whole celebrity culture, and this is a child actor, basically, son of a famous actor. Did you ever think he had this in him?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, he always every now and then would show signs that he felt this way. You know, it's just that in a lot of cases it's just that the rest of us don't always say everything that we happen to be feeling when we're in the angriest or most self-obsessed mode. No, I would certainly have put him top 5 in terms of somebody who would have been capable of going off like this, because it always seemed like he harbored this sort of rage.
Yeah.
For some reason, it seemed to be directed at women, which was really hard to understand given the upbringing he had received from Martin Sheen, who I think everyone admires so much. It just seemed like he'd missed some part of the core curriculum. So the fact that he would be, on a tear, not that surprising, really. Because now we really know what FU money looks like.
Mm.
If we ever wondered what forget you money looks like, now we look it up in the dictionary, and there's going to be a picture of Charlie Sheen from this era in his life.
I like that. He's just sitting on the FU money pile right now, just whipping $100 bills at everybody.
Yeah, do this, do that. I don't have to be nice to any of you anymore. I'm set. So anyone who seems to have cheesed him off is going to get some. And
I thought
what he wants, when he wants it.
I thought when he attacked poor John Stamos, that's when things really crossed the line. You don't go after Stamos.
Well, I'm sure John's doing just fine out there. I don't think we have to worry about John. It's funny. I would have kind of expected, if you were running 2.5 Men, for what you would refer to as a Godfather offer to be made to Rob Lowe.
Oh, interesting. Explain.
He's fantastic on Parks and Rec, and I have no reason to think he would want to do it. But if I were running that show, I would think, let's make the Godfather offer to Rob Lowe. See if he'll come on and take this part.
Well, ironically, I hope I used that ironically correctly. I now have
You're
like
really
a total,
obsessed about that.
Yeah, I have a total phobia now of using the word ironically because I'm so tired of being...
It's like rain on your wedding day, a black fly in your Chardonnay.
I think this ironically is going to be used correctly. Ironically, he took over from Michael J. Fox on Spin City and kind of held the ratings for a year, like 10, 11 years ago, something like that. It would be interesting if whether it was Rob Lowe or, I don't know, David Schwimmer or whatever big name, if they could come in and just kind of hold the fort for a year. It'd be a little Ewing theory, I think, with Charlie.
Well, but except that Lowe is a huge star. I mean, that's the thing. The thing is, you can give Lowe Sheen's deal and feel like, well, he deserves that. He's been tremendous on television. You know, he has the same sort of interesting
bad boy
personal background from the day. He certainly turned it around and been, done really good work over the last 10 years and stuff, and shown what a smart and talented guy he is. But the audience would kind of bring a little of that memory to his character if he played that role. So to me, it makes a crazy bit of personal sense. It makes sort of sense, except that he's great on Parks and Rec. But yeah, I think he would pick it up without missing it. I think they grew up together in Malibu. It's possible that they were even on some little league teams up there back in the day.
Wow.
So,
well, they were in the Outsiders together.
Sure. Well, that whole gang was in the Outsiders together. That's when was Ralph Macchio in the Outsiders too?
You better believe Mach was in it. C. Tom Howell was in it.
Now that Ralph is back in a big way, and of course they're all obsessed with Diane Lane, who was the only woman on that shoot.
It was a murderer's row because Swayze was involved too.
Oh yes. No, there are amazing stories. There are amazing stories from that shoot. There are amazing stories from that shoot, I'm sure, because Tom Cruise had a piece of that action too, if I recall correctly. And
well, if you ever watch that movie on cable, Cruise is in. When he goes into fifth gear and really overacts, he really brings it to another level with the intensity. He does that in that movie to the extreme.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I think they all regarded him as pure as the driven snow. I mean, he had a background that was so different from those guys who had grown up in the movie business. Charlie Sheen wasn't a child actor, but he and the Lowe's, and the Penns and stuff, they did all grow up in an environment that was very knowledgeable about the business. And I guess that GQ piece about Charlie references the fact that particularly the Sheens and the Penns grew up really obsessed with Apocalypse Now, because obviously Martin Sheen had been in it. And I've always felt like Sean Penn's ideas about the movie business and maybe Charlie's ideas about the movie business have always been shaped by the experience they had watching, Martin Sheen go through Apocalypse Now. The personal challenges that everybody went through. He had a heart attack during the filming of that movie, the money getting pulled back and forth. The late Chris Penn, it was said, could identify any aircraft used during Vietnam just by the sound of it. So
really?
That was just a huge film for them as young people growing up. And I always thought it kind of set their minds together about what Hollywood was like. And maybe we're seeing it played out now with Charlie.
I have to say one thing about Rob Lowe. Went to dinner like 2 months ago with my wife and a couple other people, and Rob Lowe happened to be at the next table. And unfortunately for me, my wife was facing in a direction that she was basically facing Rob Lowe for the entire dinner.
Good luck.
She was done. She was out of it. She was in just a fog. I don't understand how. I mean, that guy. What kind of life did that guy have? I mean, my wife literally. If Rob Lowe had been like,
I remember all the stories.
If Rob Lowe had just gotten up and looked at my wife and just waved her over with his finger and they left, that would have been it. I don't think I ever would have saw her again.
And here's the horrible thing: like, totally nice guy. I believe a Sports Emmy nominee for Best Writing for an ESPN thing. I mean, this is a talented man. You have to take your hat off. This guy's really done it. So
if Rob Lowe gets a 2.5 man job,
we have to keep our wives out of restaurants that Rob Lowe is in.
I'll never do it again.
That's the key thing. Yeah.
So if Rob Lowe gets this job, I think everybody can credit you for saving CBS, because I can't believe how much money the show makes. Holy mackerel!
It was staggering. It's the kind of show that I don't doubt that it's a good show, but it's the kind of show I only watch on airplanes. Going from New York to Los Angeles, and here I am at 54 having the 54-year-old's response going, "Are there kids on this plane? Should they be seeing a sitcom where a woman in a red camisole is hopping into bed with Charlie Sheen?"
Yeah. Probably not. It seems like it used to be a running joke for us during football games. It seemed like every promo for that show was the same show or the same episode. It was like, Charlie finds a girl, but will his fear of commitment come back to bite him? And then like John Cryer would say something funny, and then that gawky kid would be there, and they'd be like, 2.5 Men Monday nights. That'd be the promo.
I want football to come back, pro football to come back, just so we can hear Jim Nantz do the promos for next season of 2.5 Men.
2.5 Men with Matt LeBlanc. He's probably in the mix.
Charlie's born again. But will his new evangelical friend take to his old pal?
Will he ever work again? Is he unhireable now?
No, he's not unhireable. He will work again.
Oh.
If they settle all this, and you know exactly why, because there's so much money involved.
Yeah.
The reason why he can say all these things is that he is making a ton of money, and he knows it. You know, for everybody at CBS and stuff. So he's eminently hireable.
I was so excited.
When you're not going to make money for anybody, that your career is over. I realize this sounds like a tautology, but it's definitely his situation.
I was so excited when he accurately quoted the Allen Iverson practice quote from 10 years ago that he had enough of a long-term memory to even remember how that was structured. I was impressed.
Oh, the guy loves his sports. You know, you can't deny him on that. He, as you remember, he had the famous Bill Buckner ball on as I recall, on a, with track lighting in a glass case in his house for a while. I'm forgetting how that all sort of went down, but you know, it had the kiss from Lenny Dykstra on it. It had Mookie's signature. I guess the chain of command had been from the first base umpire.
Yeah,
he had all those things. I'm sorry, it's probably a hard thing to bring up out of nowhere.
Yeah, thanks for that monkey wrench for me. Our friend Connor Shell thinks that I should redo the podcast as a video podcast and make every one of them look like Charlie's live TMZ video yesterday. So
I am of course very excited about Charlie going on ABC tonight. Andrea Canning sitting down with him for a full hour, and we showed a lot of those clips on Good Morning America yesterday morning after the Oscars, and the hair, the cigarette smoking, it was tremendous.
Yep. And
the look is unforgettable.
He looks worn out, too. He's starting to look like a Wire character.
He's on a drug. It's called Charlie Sheen.
I love it. Who would have thought he would have topped himself from the Heidi Fleiss hooker scandal? I mean, he was the star of that scandal.
You can't count it. Well, there were a lot of stars of that scandal.
You think that was like Crash?
Piece. That was more like a Beverly Hills 90210 Crash. Exactly.
Crash.
Thank you.
He was
much
Don
better
Cheadle.
Analogy. Yes, that was like Crash. He was like Matt Dillon in that whole thing. There was enough beer for everyone in that scandal. But at last, he's above the line on this one. He's the only star.
It's a one-man show. So
absolutely, it's like Hal Holbrook doing Mark Twain tonight. If there were still any impressionists in Hollywood. Oh, wait a minute. Who's that guy who does John Madden and those guys? What's his name?
Oh, Frank Caliendo. Yeah.
Time for Frank to come up with a one-man Charlie Sheen show.
Well, he needs to do impressions anyway, so yeah, he's still doing the Madden and the Bush. He needs to move into this decade, so that could
good.
possibly
Charlie,
really help him.
Just needs a little gray hair and that look.
Yeah.
That kind of slightly manic look.
So I'm getting this question a lot on email and on Twitter. I wrote in a mailbag about 6 weeks ago. No, it was less than that. It was 4 weeks ago about people were wondering if I should rename the Tyson Zone the Charlie Sheen Zone. And, you know, I with all due respect to Charlie's resume, I just felt like the Tyson Zone should still be named the Tyson Zone because you kind of forget now that time has passed and Tyson is the gentle guy from The Hangover who flies pigeons. Some of the stuff that he pulled in the 90s, which is why we created the Tyson Zone in the first place. I think Charlie has now blown out the Tyson Zone with what he's done the last 2 weeks. We're now at the point where I would believe any story with Charlie Sheen. You could make up a story right now, I'd believe it.
It's true. It could. There is no ceiling, as you may have once written about LeBron or something. The ceiling has come off. There is no place that this story could not go. The only thing I'd sort of say is that what made the Tyson Zone work was that Tyson perfectly oscillated between the guy who did the crazy things and the guy who found himself in the crazy situation. People were doing crazy things to him. Somebody once told me that the definition of there are two possible successful characters in reality television. One is the person who remains completely calm in the middle of absolute chaos. That's a successful reality TV character. The other is the person who, in a totally calm situation, is completely crazy.
Ooh.
And if you get one of those two, you have a pretty good reality character. Tyson was both, right? Tyson both did crazy things and then sat next to his wife while she said he was crazy. So he covered a lot of ground. Charlie's getting his own shot here. Charlie really is Allen Iverson, you know. Charlie's putting up those points all by himself.
The thing with Tyson, the two things that he did that pushed him over the top were biting Holyfield's ear off.
Yeah.
Not just biting it, but actually biting it and spitting out a piece of it. And then, the face tattoo. You can't sleep on the face tattoo. How weird that was at the time. There's no real explanation for it. And all of a sudden, he just had a giant tattoo covering one side of his face. Charlie,
and you throw into that what we're continuing to sort of understand is a remarkable vocabulary. You know, Tyson has a vocabulary that very few athletes have, and that leads to some moments of great personal insight now, and as you've well chronicled, leads to some truly unforgettable statements from the past.
Like when he was going to Bolivia?
Absolutely.
Bolivian. No, Bolivian.
I'm going to fade into Bolivian.
That was my favorite. I love that one.
Maybe the greatest thing an athlete has said in many years. I was going to do a story for ESPN once, and may still do a story at some point. A producer and I on who was the first athlete to refer to himself in the third person.
Why can't you do that story Why can't you do that for my website?
Well, it will take a lot of tolling through the ESPN tapes to see who did it. You know, it's like Bo Jackson and Muhammad Ali certainly qualifies to some level. Ricky Henderson is right in there, and I've heard a lot of sort of apocryphal stories I haven't been able to confirm. You know,
Connelly, you're going to have to choose.
That certainly comes to mind.
You're going to have to choose at some point. You're either with me or against me. If you're against me, you're out. And also, I think that Ali was the first guy who did third person. I really do. I don't even think anybody had even thought of it until he did it.
Well, you know what I think? Guys in the old days, in the 50s, they had wacky nicknames. You know, the press always gave them. The press was like, if you were successful, the press gave you a nickname. Particularly in baseball, they gave you some, homespun nutty nickname,
like the Splinter.
And you do hear from the 30s and 40s and early 50s guys in baseball using their nicknames as they talk about themselves. So that's like the introductory course in using first person. You know, Roy Williams was the last guy I saw who did that. Old Roy better get back. And there was a little of that, like Dizzy Dean would do that. And so I think that was sort of the introductory course in guys using the first person.
You, for some reason, have this little side career as a Bachelor expert.
That I can thank the ABC television network for, since I believe the 2-hour Bachelor special that I co-hosted with Deborah Roberts, I think the tapes are with the Peabody people now.
The Paley Center.
We'll just see where they go. I want to get them to the DuPont Awards guys by the end of the month, but the Peabody people have to weigh in first.
Are you watching this season? Probably not.
I am not, although I like somebody, like the way they used to talk about basketball, I tend to come in for the last 5 minutes. So I not only did I watch the show last night, but I also checked your excellent spouse's tweets throughout the show.
That's the only time she tweets.
I know, and I can see that you better be holding on with two hands to that laptop, because if you don't take her on that African safari, it's going into the pool.
She's always wanted to go on an African safari, and of course they had to do this on The Bachelor, and she's watching it, and I could just see, like, she just kept looking at me and making a face. And I'm like, what are you making a face at me for? She's like, I've always wanted to go to Africa. You know that. And so... Well,
I got to say this. South African tourism, money well spent last night. I have to say, that was money well spent. A vuvuzela-free 2 hours in South Africa. Who wouldn't want to go there?
Plus, with the Maricopa...
That looks tremendous.
With the Maricopa reality editing, it made it seem like you could have, like, picnics among the lions and the hippos. And it's just like, let's get our picnic basket.
I was watching it with Gabriel, our 14-year-old, and when Shantala was saying, I feel so safe with you here, having a picnic with you. I feel so safe with you here. Gabriel said, how about the guy with the gun?
That guy, too. He helps.
Maybe you want to bring up the guy with the gun.
Now, when you dove into the psychology of the show, is it fair to say that the producers really massage these girls in the right ways, and they have these little private interviews with each of them, and they play the whole thing like Brad's really getting attached to you?
Bill, what you know from reality television is that after the first season of anything, the contestants get the game. They get how you're supposed to play the game. I don't think as much massaging is necessary as others might imagine, because these are smart people. They've watched the game. They know what stands out. They know what they have to do. If they're trying to stay on, if they're trying to pull a stunt, I think they already come to the enterprise ready to play. What the producers do that's so clever is they make sure that no conflict gets resolved off camera.
Oh.
That nothing, if it means keeping two of the women away from each other until they come back together, it's like nobody hugs it out off camera on that show. That's the key thing. So that all the drama takes place while the camera is rolling. And that's one of the things I think they do, they do really well. So none of that stuff is missed.
I was really disappointed because, I can either watch the show or not watch it. But
it looks like it's quality time at home, really. It looks like I think of reality as you watch reality with your wife the way I used to watch Hill Street Blues with my wife. I think it's great.
I really get a kick out of her comments and her running dialogue as it's going on. And she never fails to deliver. But the thing that, I always make sure I watch if it's Final 3. And I'll always ask, is tonight Final 3? She's like, no, they got 6 left. When it's Final 3, that's when they have the overnight dates.
That's right.
And the overnight dates are great because at this point, all these girls they really do think they're in love with him. And if you're in love with somebody, you want to make love to them. That's just how it goes. You're handed the key to this overnight suite. And so now there are all these other dynamics in there. But my favorite one was always that he's going to hook up in some way with all three and then vote one of them off. And the look that they shoot when they get voted off after they've just done the overnight date is my favorite look in television that's not sports. So last night, I felt robbed because, Chantel obviously was ready to go. Like, she cut the dinner short so they could get to the overnight suite. She knows why she's in the game.
Not so into the South African cuisine, it would appear, Chantel.
No. She knows her meal ticket to the final two, and she was very clear about that. The second one...
That was not an outfit you would have worn to the Oscars. Let's put it that way.
No, it was not. The second one... the one who was the widow of the race car driver was the daughter. Yeah. Obviously not going to be as good of a time with her. She's setting an example for her daughter. Maybe they make out. That's it. Then the third one, the date went horribly wrong for whatever reason. It just, I don't even know what happened. It was confusing to watch, and she ended up getting voted off. But I don't think he did anything with her that night. So they basically, what I'm trying to say is they robbed me of that look, which I look forward to.
Yes, yes. No, you're right. And it's funny because I think everybody was sort of, he was so ready to go with Chantal that you thought, wow, if there are three like this, somebody's really going to have a little meltdown here in the South African bush. And that did not happen. They were not on the. They were. It looked like a bad freshman mixer from the days when Amherst was a single-sex institution, and we would all go over to Smith in our Earth shoes to meet the young ladies. So,
what's the psychology of how they pick The Bachelor? Because these are these guys who they're not really that funny. They're good-looking. They talk in these weird abstracts. They don't really say anything when they're having conversations with people. They don't talk about things that are going on in life. It's always about how you feeling. Are we in a good place? They're not really witty. They're not mysterious. It's almost like they come off an assembly line. Would you agree?
I like how they find the line that they cling to, like Jack and Kate cling to that little portion of the Titanic towards the end of that movie. And the line, I forget what Jake's line was, but this guy's line is, "I'm just myself when I'm with so and so,"
right?
Which I'm sure is very comforting to the woman. You know, I feel like I'm completely myself. I'm always myself. I just feel like myself.
It's amazing
yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, it's amazing that with all the failed marriages over the last 10 years, that this show continues to, I think it's rating better than ever.
You know, how we have those SAP buttons on our remote controls, that if we press the button, we'd hear it in Spanish. Yep. I keep thinking that there should be a translation button for The Bachelor, where every time anyone talks about commitment or getting married or anything, the phrase that you hear instead is "hook up for the next couple of months."
Right.
I'm really excited about hooking up with you for the next couple of months. I think there's something about us that will really make hooking up for the next couple of months special for us.
Yeah, especially I like when there's little kids in play too. You know, this girl now is in the final two. She's got a 5-year-old daughter, and Brad, who's spent like 2 hours with her, is, I can't wait to be a father to whatever the girl's name is. It's like, dude.
I know they're really an accelerant. I remember Stephanie Hogan. Didn't she have a child too from an earlier? You know, I interviewed.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I interviewed a bunch of these guys, and they're perfectly nice. You go in, and it's kind of like a cross between interviewing somebody on a soap opera and somebody in a swingers club.
My wife gets mad when the girls go on the show who have kids. She just thinks it's wrong. What do you stand on that?
Well, the women this year are quite young, aren't they? Doesn't it seem like they're quite young?
There's at least 3 who had kids, though.
Yeah, well, they're all lovely. They're all lovely young women. And what's he's been doing? He's been running bars in Austin. Something. None of these guys ever have a job that can be described in a sentence. Otherwise, they wouldn't let you go off to South Africa with 3 women for a week and a half.
Otherwise, you couldn't do The Bachelor twice for 4 months at a time within a 3-year span. You're not doing that if you're a lawyer.
Well, Chantal's I actually called my wife's attention to Chantal's job description. What was it? Children's Hospital Event Planner.
Oh no, that was the widow. That was her job.
Oh, the widow's job. I'm sorry, pardon me. Children's Hospital Event Planner.
Yeah, I mean she's the perfect person to be on this show because she's so like motherly and wholesome, and she's got the most wholesome job, and she's got those nice teeth, and she doesn't do any of the bitterness. That's what you said. You know, I always told my daughter that we were after some of these young teen stars started becoming singers, and I sort of noticed how they transformed when they became singers. I said to Rose, we should get a super group of teen stars to sing on the Grammys or something, and we would call them the Veneers. Because they all get their teeth done. Yeah, that's a nice one. I like it. You know, the one who got...
Their teeth are all brand new, and you can't stop looking at their teeth. You go, what? You're like, who sent you to Eric Estrada's guy?
You know, the one who got voted off last night is going to be the next Bachelorette.
Really?
The dentist, yeah.
Really?
She fits the profile. They never go for somebody who's like, and this is another way the producers are very smart. They'll never pick somebody, like Chantel O would never be the next Bachelor. They're never going to pick somebody that women will secretly hate and get competitive with. It's always going to be somebody who's cute, but not overwhelmingly cute. Somebody who is very likable and has got a lot of pizzazz, but somebody that women aren't going to be threatened by, because if a woman hates The Bachelorette, they're not going to watch.
Well, I think it was Mike
theory.
Fleiss, when I interviewed him, who said that the average Bachelor's, count on The Bachelor is 3.5.
3.5.
3.5. That's the hookup count. 3.5.
How do you find a
the
hookup?
Average Bachelor.
Like making out or a lot more?
I said how much sex is there? He said 3.5. So, literally, I can say you do the math.
Well, listen. Now that we know that, I feel like that's something I should be able to wager on. Heading into every season.
The over-under, yeah, that's right. The over-under is 3.5.
Because then it'd be like you're watching the show last night. You're like, come on, Emily, take the overnight, please. Take her. Come on, have another sip of that Chardonnay. Come on.
I have the kids' college tuition based on you taking that key and going back. But no, that wasn't going to happen from the get-go. You just felt like something was off with those two.
I always thought when I was working for Jimmy's show, the ABC guys running ABC at the time, we were peppering him with questions about The Bachelor, and he said the single most
that must have gone well.
No, he was more than willing to talk about it. He said the single most important thing about the show is the battery of sexual disease tests, STD tests they give them before the thing. It's like the same way like you would get shots and stuff before you go to South Africa. That's the level of testing that goes on before anybody. I think that The Bachelor is better testing than porn. I
think we know that. I don't think there's any question about that.
Let's talk about Oscars.
You have to feel totally comfortable.
Let's talk about the Oscars. You were not on the red carpet this year.
Well, not on the red carpet. You know who was the excellent and outstanding Erin Andrews. She did a great job. It was her first time on the Oscar red carpet, and everybody at Good Morning America was talking about how, A, she looked tremendous, and B, she did a great job, and then hit all the parties afterwards. So I did, however, follow the show closely. I was on the red carpet at 4 a.m. that day, and it was pretty cold, and then saw the show like everybody else. So before Charlie Sheen swept into our world and took all memory of entertainment that happened before then out of the mix.
You were on the red carpet at 4 a.m?
I was doing a couple of live hits, as they say, for Weekend GMA on Sunday. So,
oh God.
So it was a little lonely out there, aside from our wonderful crew. But yes, there I was on the very red carpet that some of those people would be walking a little later. Don't you
have no, I'm not doing that power at this point?
Don't you find that when you say yes, everyone's happier?
Hey, listen, I'll say yes to anything, but I'm not getting up at 3:30 in the morning. That's
so long as Rob Lowe's not in the restaurant, I'm there.
That's pretty. Did you? So obviously you were as disenchanted as everyone else with
yes,
the
I was
hosting.
disappointed.
Yeah.
I didn't. I don't fault the hosts. I don't think it was their fault. I think they were. I thought it was an old guy's show. I thought it was the Get Off My Lawn Oscars.
Nice. How come?
Because all those old movies brought up over and over again with no real excitement generated on the stage. I thought they were kind of hiding behind the youth of their hosts to try to appeal to a younger audience, but didn't do what was necessary or helpful to those hosts to make them succeed, or to help them succeed. I thought particularly Miss Hathaway was game. She wanted to be great, and I didn't feel like they gave her the support to make that happen,
Yeah.
People criticize. You've probably read people are criticizing Franco for being kind of out of it or that kind
That's
of thing.
who he is.
That would have been a great character to play. Like if that had been their persona, that she's this sort of type A, ready to go, funny and energetic, and he had played as a comedic part, like the kind of slacker host. That could have made for very funny comedy, but nobody seemed to work very hard to make that happen. You compare that to the energy of like the Hugh Jackman year, where he's doing all this stuff, and Beyonce's there, and they've got this great supper club look, and he's entertaining, very different. It seemed to miss the edgy energy that a comedian brings. A guy who's always wondering, or a woman who's always wondering, am I funny enough? Is this funny enough? Should this be funnier? Do we need a funnier joke? Somebody who is like an adjutant saying, we got to make this better. We got to make this funny. You know what it's like to be around guys like that. You know that when like Seth Meyers comes to do the ESPYs, right? He brings all of his SNL guys there, right?
Yep.
Doesn't that happen?
Well,
I think bringing your own guys in sometimes is a good idea to make sure that you get it the way you want it.
And I think coming out of the gate, they do the thing where the two hosts are digitally inserted into the 10 movie clips. Like that's just, I don't want to say it's a stale idea, but I've seen it a million times.
The bar is high. The bar is high. Like if you're going to do it, execute it really well.
It's got to be. Yeah, you got to knock it out of the park because that's an idea that people have been doing for 5 or 6 years, and it's done over and over again on late night shows. And then the other thing is, I think the thing that seems to work really well at the Oscars, and the one thing that works for some reason in that setting more than any other setting, is the musical stuff, and having the host do some sort of musical. Like Billy Crystal was the best at it, but that's like a home run. Like to not bang one of those out of the park, especially with Hathaway, who can actually like do some stuff.
I know.
That was a big miss.
I know, and that's the thing. That's why I say don't blame the host. It's like she was ready to do anything. Like she would have done any number or dance that you want. Wasn't there a clip that had them doing "You're the One That I Want" together?
Yeah.
Wasn't there some clip that surfaced on the internet before? Like that wouldn't have been fun. Like we wouldn't have gotten a kick out of that.
Eric Rideholm said that it was actually in the Twitter era, it's actually better when the show stinks because these live event shows that you can't DVR have now become something that with social media and on Facebook and on Twitter and texting and emails, like you're experiencing it in real time with people that you're either friends with or that you're following or whoever, and it's better if the show sucks. Do you agree with that?
Well, that's absolutely, I mean, in the grand sense, he's absolutely right. And you and I have talked about this before. It's like Twitter and Facebook and all these things, they need these big events to be the thing that everybody talks about.
Yeah.
Just like these news aggregation sites need the New York Times and the Economist and the London Times to take stuff from. We all need to talk about something, and at one point or other, it has to be the same thing, or else we're not going to have anything to have a conversation about. So, The Bachelor, the Super Bowl, the Final Four, the Oscars, good or bad, that's what we want to talk about. So
live events are coming back, and I also think I do wonder if part of it, if this is part of the reason why the dramas did so well this year. Like I think William Goldman and I talked about it yesterday, but the box office numbers for these dramas, for whatever reason, in 2010 were so much better than something like The Hurt Locker in 2009, which I think only made $17 million. And I think part of it is because it seems like now we're all in on this giant conversation, and you kind of want to be up to date with what people are talking about. And it's like if people are talking about the King's Speech,
as fragmented as the conversation gets, as much as you go on Twitter and 50,000 people are saying, "I just had the worst bagel." We all need a unifying thing to discuss.
Yep.
And you're right that the discussion, as you have noted a number of times, it's the everything sucks issue. The way people seem to want to talk about things online is to say first how bad it is. Maybe we'll evolve out of that and be as entertaining. But we need the shared events, and dramas are part of it to make the conversation worth having.
And I think The Decision, that was another event that was like that. That was
right.
an event 5 years ago. that happens, and then we're all emailing each other, and then you wait the next day and you read the newspaper accounts and everybody's take on it. And now it's like instantaneously I'm getting feedback on everything. And I think that could be good and bad. I think it's.
But remember when we had the conversation as to what story would have been the biggest on cable television, and everywhere had there been Twitter and Facebook, and I said Fritz Peterson and Mike Kekich, and you said the Olympic athletes and stuff. If we're talking about a decision type kind of made-for-TV event, can you imagine in the era of Twitter and Facebook and cable television, Bobby Riggs versus Billie Jean King?
Yeah. That would have been great.
Wow.
I think there's a lot of different things, that we haven't really had a massive, and maybe this is a knock-on-wood situation, but we haven't really had a massive tragedy yet. I think we might have even talked about this last time. I think you look at just what would have happened with 9/11 had that happened in the Twitter, Facebook era. I think that's a totally different event, the way we experienced it. The way we experienced it in 2002 is you sat in front of your television, you watched it, and you called your friends. And, now I think that would be totally different. We even saw it with the Egypt stuff. I feel like I knew more about that event because of Twitter and people I was following and how easily it is to forward links now. I was really up on that. I don't know if I would have been up on that in 2004.
Yeah, I know. It's different. It is different. And I do feel like the events that would really churn, though, are those male-female events, the ones that get everybody involved, the ones that like The Bachelor or like some of this other stuff, just get people talking.
What other male-female events are there?
Well, aside from The Bachelor.
Charlie Sheen? I think Charlie Sheen is a male-female event.
Well, Charlie Sheen is rapidly becoming a male-female event. How perfect was it when Charlie Sheen called into Pat O'Brien's radio show?
Oh my God! It was like two
like
worlds.
That's the next. That's got to be the next Hangover, right? Yeah. That's the next due date. That's the next buddy movie.
I'm in. Can I be a producer?
I think you can, Bill.
Let me ask you, a guy who's lived in L.A. now for 20 years.
Sure.
Football stadium, you buying it?
Yeah, sure. You can hear the shrug. I do think they need two teams instead of one. I think they really want to make it happen. It does seem sort of embarrassing that we don't. When I came out here, we had two teams, but one team was from Oakland and one team had gone to Anaheim, and so there wasn't really the sense of the team. The Anaheim thing was a bigger deal than it might have seemed elsewhere, I guess. And it was really cool to have the Raiders here. I used to take Henry to some of those games, and it was a lot of fun. But it didn't feel like, they were, in your heart, you still sort of felt that, like they were the Oakland Raiders. So I don't really know what it's like when a team out here is the thing. It'd be cool if it happened, just so long as they don't, use any money that would be spent elsewhere. You got to, as you've done, Bill. I think you have to give credit to the guys who created LA Live and who made all that happen. The AEG guys have done a really good job with that part of the world, though. So you have to give them points for that.
Yeah, they did figure out how to pay for most of it, which a lot of people in the past haven't. I was really impressed at All-Star Weekend how well that whole thing just went, compared to 2004. And just, the post-game thing, they had people, probably 3,500 people who had the tickets for it, could go across the street. Everything was closed off. You could go in any restaurant, get a drink or food or whatever, and it was outdoors, and it was really happy. And it made me think, like, this was a part of Los Angeles that you would not have walked around at night 6 years ago. And that happened. And that's and you'll remember, Bill, the weather was really bad that weekend. So it wasn't like we had sun and fun to offer. I felt bad for the folks who were coming out here that we didn't have like nice 70-degree temperatures. But it was like David Stern said to you, I think, why are you coming back to L.A.? He said, our guests had a good time. Yeah. Our guests had a good time. And it just seems like I think those guys know what they're doing. And if the football stadium happens, that whole area, I think they could support 2 teams. The whole concert
Yeah, I mean,
thing
you know
would
what
be
it is. That's still well in the Roger Goodell world. That's 18 dates a year, right?
Right. Or 36. Could be 36. Plus playoffs. Plus Super Bowls. Like,
it's going to start to be like the English Premier League, where when they're going for the Carling Cup, you see 4 guys named Ned, the quarterback for for the Patriots or something. They'll just start playing second string guys if they go to the 18-game season.
I ended up I went to this dinner during one of the nights there, and I sat next to this guy who is one of the guys who runs Ticketmaster, and he was talking to me about what's happening in the music industry right now. I wanted to ask you about it. He was saying that in 10 years, there will not be a single band that can sell out a football stadium, which I hadn't really thought of, and then I was thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, who is that band? And, I think we keep talking about how different sports are going to be over the next 10 years and how the tickets are going to be different, how much harder it is to get people to come out of their house when they have nice TVs and they don't want to sit with crappy seats and deal with the parking and the food, all that. And not as many people are talking about that impact in the music industry and how hard it's going to be to get people to come to bigger arenas and see these things. And then you look at the whole iTunes thing, what's going on there, and they don't generate the same revenue from albums. And if they're not generating the same revenue from concerts or albums, that's a problem. Those are the 2 places bands make money and record companies make money.
Does that mean that Alison Krauss can come to my house and play a show or something like that?
Potentially,
will I be able to order up? I think there are 2 things you're talking about. I think one is the challenge of creating new mass artists in the brave new world. That's certainly an issue, and that's been discussed a whole lot. Like, why would Bruce Springsteen ever become a musician in this day and age? How would anyone ever know he existed? That's one thing. However, you've talked about the fact that the fan experience watching a game at home is now arguably better than the fan experience watching a game in a stadium. You've talked
unless
about
you have
that,
great
right?
seats. Yeah, unless you have great seats or good seats.
I don't think you're going to get an argument about whether it's better to watch a concert by U2 at home versus a concert by U2 in the stadium. That is a real difference. And I don't see that changing, whether it's U2 or Arcade Fire or Britney or Taylor Swift. You want to be there. You do want to be there. You want to share the physical space with them. And with the video screens and the things they can do, you can still have a much more exciting time than you ever would watching it at home. So I don't see that changing. I think the challenge of getting somebody up to that size is a big one. But I do think it's just much more fun to watch somebody in concert than it is to watch them do it from the comfort of your home.
My only counter would be that, let's say it's 1977, and young and hip Chris Connelly, the Rolling Stones are coming to town, or Springsteen, or Billy Joel, Elton John, whoever. You have an incentive to go see those people because you're not able to consume them in any other way other than the album that you have.
Yeah.
Now, I can watch any YouTube clip of anybody online. I can download any song I want at any time. I can buy those concert DVDs and Blu-rays or watch them on HDNet, things like that. I don't know if there's the same incentive unless you really.
No, that revs you up more. That
you think
revs
so?
You up
Interesting.
More. That makes you more excited to see. That's like, you think of the things you don't have now. You don't have the big album covers. You don't get to see who wrote the songs and who produced. You don't get to read the liner notes. You don't get to feel it in your hand. You don't get to do all that stuff. The more information you get about a band, the more jacked you are to see them live. I go on YouTube sometimes and I watch old clips by the Faces.
Yeah.
The Rod Stewart, Ron Wood band. They were unbelievable. I've got them on, I watch them on YouTube. They're incredible. They're like, if they were playing tomorrow, I'd be first in line to watch them just because I've seen all these clips. They're amazing. So I actually think the more you see this stuff, the more excited you get to try to see what that's like in, there. And you'll still always get people saying, well, you have to be there. If you're not there, you just don't feel it. You know, when he's out there or she's out there, it's just like it's amazing. It's special, and
okay.
and so
Well,
I actually think that helps in a way.
Well, explain this to me then. Why were we generating so many gigantic artists 30 years ago and 20 years ago, and now looking forward, like who's going to play the 2020 Super Bowl? Like, where are the artists that...
You're turning me into those guys from the Oscars, you know? Now I'm like, get off my lawn guy here. You know, going, I'll tell you, back in the day, they'll show up. I'm going to say they'll be there.
They're going to be there. Interesting.
You may not love Taylor Swift, but millions do. You may not want to see Justin Bieber or Usher in a venue like that, but millions do. I don't know about rock. Rock is challenged right now.
Yeah.
You know, you would think that you've got Justin Bieber on the radio, you have Britney and all those folks on the radio, but rock has a hard time. I keep thinking that Robert Pattinson with a guitar over him, playing a guitar, at least metaphorically, should be able to sell 10 million records. They just haven't found him yet.
So you think Biebs has legs? Because I think he's done in 2 years.
I don't know. It discourages me a little bit that here was a kid who had, if you watched his YouTube videos, he had one fantastic skill. He had a huge voice.
Yeah.
He did have a huge voice. And so it kind of bums me out sometimes when I see him on shows and he looks to be lip syncing and he's dancing a lot. But he's a teen idol. Like maybe he can make the transition like Justin Timberlake, and that would be great. And by the way, it wouldn't hurt us all if Justin Timberlake decided to make another record, because he could sell 60,000 out if he did something like that. So maybe he makes a transition. You just don't know yet. The good news is that when you have a teen idol like that, people get excited about music again. Everybody I worked with at MTV, all the people who loved all the hippest bands in town, they all had been fans of David Cassidy back in the day. That's how they got started.
Yeah.
They didn't stay with him. They didn't think he was the be-all, end-all. But that was sort of your first foot in. And then you get to, Radiohead and guys like that. But you start with the teen idol. So he's good news just because he gets people thinking about music again.
Well, the other issue is that, the best media or the best art form that's kind of evolved over the last 20 years has been hip-hop in terms of like just creating new ground and going in new directions. And just not a lot of guys with legs coming out of that thing. Some of them died, too.
I remember seeing Eminem, what was it, like in 2000 or something, perform at big shows and stuff, and he was fine. He was good. But if you watch him on the VMAs, you watch him on the Grammys, you think, wow, here's a guy who really is as intense and exciting to watch live as a rock band would be. And I think that I haven't seen Jay-Z in a venue or anything like that, but I think the same thing is true for him. I think the challenge has been making that into a really thrilling, art form for a big stadium show. And I feel like they're getting better at that. So that would probably help.
It hasn't been great. It's been something that it's always sounded better on a CD or an album or iTunes or whatever you're listening to.
Because the words matter, and because not only you don't see a lot of guys playing instruments, or maybe this is just a guy in his 50s talking. I don't know that. That could be true too.
Slickly produced.
But it does seem like it's. I mean, I thought that performance at the Grammys was really compelling.
Yeah,
and
it made me think that there was hope for that whole, for where things are going. I agree with you on Timberlake, although I can't decide if he's making the wrong move or not, because, on the one hand, it's the old Jeff Ross stay your lane theory. If you have your lane, you stick to your lane. It seems like he also wants to act and be a host, do all the other things. On the other hand, he's been successful, and yesterday, Dan Silver mentioned on my podcast that he's kind of a logical host for the 2012 Oscars. And you think, that's somebody that can really...
I think he needs to make a bigger movie. He was, third male lead in the movie that almost won Best Picture?
And was probably the worst actor in it, to be honest.
Well,
There was no, for some reason.
I don't know if that's true, but.
Oh, I think that was true. I still blame him for the fact that it didn't win Best Film. Because I think if you saw King's Speech...
Justin Timberlake for the fact it didn't win Best Movie?
He was kind of the...
Did you ever see Billy Zane in Titanic? William Goldman, your friend, once described Billy Zane as the worst thing that was ever in a good movie. In a good movie.
He was comically
bad. And that won Best Picture.
I know, but King's Speech was just impeccably acted. And I don't think you could say the same about Social Network. It was impeccably done. It was impeccably written. But I don't think I never bought him in that role. And it's a polarizing opinion because some people loved him.
I thought he was fine. I didn't have an issue with him. I thought the difference was that the Social Network ends with its lead character being described as, we'll say, a jerk twice. Rashida Jones' last line uses a slightly stronger word than jerk to refer to your lead character twice. Mm. They didn't do that in the King's Speech. Best Pictures usually don't have ambivalent guys at the center. They usually provide the audiences with a big emotional swoop. Like Lady Gaga says, Academy voters were born this way. They like the big swoop. And because it was kind of honest and ambivalent and that kind of thing, it didn't give the audience the candy it usually likes in a Best Picture. And that's why it didn't win.
But the writer, Mark Harris, had an interesting take. He said that King's Speech was kind of the way Hollywood likes to think of itself. Social Network was a movie about what Hollywood really is people screwing each other over.
Yeah, I think
take credit
true,
for things they didn't do. I thought that was a good way to put it.
I was not a huge fan of the King's Speech, so I was maybe more disappointed than other people. But I thought it was, not intentionally perhaps great, but I thought it was Oscar bait.
Yeah.
That the speech therapist would suddenly turn into Robin Williams from Good Will Hunting. I did not buy. It not only failed to suspend my disbelief, it grabbed a chair and asked my disbelief to sit down and stay a while.
I liked it. I thought Colin Firth was really good.
Oh, he was
I thought Jeffrey Rush was really good. Yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like I didn't believe a single thing. Tell me about your mother. Tell me about your father. I didn't buy it.
We were saying, Dan Silver and I were talking yesterday about whether they should have a 5-year wait, like with the Baseball Hall of Fame or whatever Hall of Fame, with Oscar picks, because I do feel like 5 years from now, people are just going to look back on this and think it was insane that Social Network didn't win the best Oscar. And especially Fincher. Fincher is the one that will that I think Fincher not winning Best Director is going to be moved into the pantheon of, Forrest Gump beating Shawshank and Pulp Fiction.
Here's why you're wrong about this.
Okay.
I will take.
I like hearing when I'm wrong.
I will take you up on this. If I blindfolded you and put you in a room with Social Network and didn't let you see the credits or you knew anything about it, and after the movie was over, I said, "So who directed this movie?" You wouldn't get Fincher on your first 20 tries. You wouldn't come close to Fincher on your first 20 tries. It doesn't feel, with the exception of the score, maybe it doesn't feel very much like a Fincher movie. You don't agree?
No, the crew scene tipped it off.
Fincher? Really?
You
think of the dominant visual motifs that are in David Fincher movies time and again. That enormous sense of darkness, that willingness to embrace,
the darkness was in there though.
Transformation and ghoulishness and stuff, and this kind of visual tour de force approach that he often uses. This is a well-made, snappy little movie that really is driven by its writer as much as it's driven by its director.
I would agree with that.
And so here's the thing: we often have a problem in the Oscars, and this is like goes back to Scorsese, of guys getting Best Director for work that isn't their best or isn't their most distinctive.
Yep.
Scorsese doesn't win for Raging Bull. Scorsese doesn't win for Goodfellas or Casino. Scorsese wins for The Departed. If you look at Fincher's got Girl with the Dragon Tattoo coming up, right?
Right.
That's going to be a David Fincher movie. You're going to say only David Fincher could have made this movie. You can just tell from the pictures. right? It's going to feel like, David Fincher in full effect. So I almost sort of feel like if he wins for that, or if that becomes more of his signature movie, then that feels like, capstone Fincher career. That's right. This is what he knows how to do. This is what he does better than other people.
I would argue that the cruise scene, well, the first scene too, but there were a couple scenes in there that it was obvious that you're just in the right hands with somebody who knows.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the first scene was the best. I mean, when have you seen a movie? When have you seen a scene that good like that first scene? I credited Aaron Sorkin with that, but that first scene is like, why don't I see this in movies?
Well, you asked me.
It was tremendous.
You asked me, could I have gotten it in 20 guesses? If I watched that movie, I would have finished it and said, that was done by somebody who knows what he's doing about as well as anybody on the planet. So I'm going to now list the top 6 directors that I think exist. So I would have gotten in the top 6. Maybe you might be right. Like, I think Fight Club obviously was much more of a Finchery movie. Mm-hmm. No question. But, it was still the hands of a pro. It was a pro pulled it off.
I mean, in a way, I felt it was like a perfect circular thing because so much of it was driven by the writing, and so we've talked about how independent film kind of transferred itself to television, and how things like The Sopranos and The West Wing and The Wire were the sort of equivalents of independent film, although they took place on television. Yeah. And this, in exchange, The Social Network felt like those TV series that we feel so strongly about, felt like The Wire, felt like The Sopranos, felt like The West Wing, for the quality of the writing that was inside, restored to movies again.
I asked Goldman that yesterday, whether he thought the way that TV has gone is going to push movies in the right kind of direction. I think you could argue that the 8-9 films that got all the attention this year, I think maybe reflected that a little bit. I hope. Yeah. Hopefully it's not a coincidence.
Yeah. No, I think movies are trying to decide what they can do better than other forms.
Yeah.
Some of them are going to look like 127 hours, and some of them are going to look and sound like The Social Network.
But we can all agree that The Hangover 2 is going to make a ridiculous amount of money.
Is Clinton in that one? Is Clinton in that one? Are they still keeping Mel Gibson out of that one? I can't remember.
I like that Zach Galifianakis laid the foot down on Mel Gibson.
Yes, he did.
He really did. He was like, I can't do this.
That's really interesting. I have to say, that's really interesting.
One of the more interesting power plays we've had in a while for anything. That was interesting.
Yes, I'd say so, yeah.
That he is...
and the way it sort of got out adds to its credibility. Like, he didn't actually come out and say it, but you could tell by kind of what he did say and then putting together other things that it seemed to be the case. So, very interesting.
Who works again, Mel Gibson or Charlie Sheen? Who works first?
Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Sheen, no question, huh?
Charlie Sheen's going to work by the end of the year. Charlie Sheen's ready to work now. Haven't you been listening?
Don't discount what he's capable of these next 2 weeks, though.
Charlie Sheen has made people money recently. That tends to get you the phone call. Lindsay Lohan can't say the same thing.
Now, for some reason, when a woman falls apart, it's more career threatening, and I don't know I don't know why that is, but we're much more easily able to accept the male comeback from hitting rock bottom with all these different things than a woman. When it happens to a woman, you're just discarded.
Charlie Sheen's dealing from a position of power. We may think he's melting down. He thinks he's truth-telling. And as we began our conversation, he's sitting on a big pile of money. That's not a moment of power when Britney Spears shaves her head. That's not a moment of power when Lindsay Lohan passes out behind the wheel of a car. Those are moments of weakness, of desperation. And so we feel for them in those moments. Those engender different feelings in us. And those are also part of a grand Hollywood tradition, of like Judy Garland, of, having your issues and coming back and all that kind of stuff. So that's on like a parallel track.
I would say Affleck, who only a little bit had the substance things, but he's a good example of the Hollywood loving to knock somebody down, and then when they come back, they love that too. It's almost like once you complete that cycle, you're good to go from there.
Yeah, they
kind of
don't.
untouchable.
Once people. As much as this is a town of champagne and Schadenfreude, it's like people do get a kick if you come back.
You feel like sports is like that, or not as much?
I think it definitely is. I think that's what every storyline we come up with is like. You might be familiar with Mr. Michael Vick.
Who's that? He played.
Is
that the Eagles guy?
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I think in Hollywood, though, it almost seems like it's part of the process. In sports, when it happens, if the guy still has to play well for it to go well, and then, everybody writes their columns, and then ultimately you're just happy to have a good athlete involved in your life again. In Hollywood, though, it really seems like you can't ride the high hog for that long. You got to have the dip, then you got to come back up, then you got to go back up again.
Well, and where what you're saying is totally true is about Tiger Woods. It's like, won't he please win already so we can write this story?
Yeah.
It's like, we wouldn't let this happen in Hollywood. In Hollywood, he would have already won an Oscar and been dating Cameron Diaz.
And sobbed on the Oscar podium.
It's like, come on, let's move this along a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
So we need Bill Goldman to come in and do the third act of the Tiger Woods story because Tiger's not getting it done right now.
And on that note, we're gonna let you go.
Swing coach has fired his swing coach and has brought in Bill Goldman.
I think that could work. We're gonna let you go, Chris Connelly. What do you have coming up? Plugs? Anything?
I've got a show on reality television, a 2020 special on reality TV coming up on the 11th, which should be fun to watch.
What's going to be on that? Hold on. What's going to be on that show?
I don't really know yet. I will tell you, I spent a day with Bret Michaels.
Ooh,
so
TiVo.
That's going to be fun. That is going to be a lot of fun. We had a great time, and you're going to enjoy seeing that on the 11th. So. His history in reality television. So.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. Chris Connelly, as always, a pleasure. We will talk to you.
Same here, Bill. Thank you so much for asking.
All right. Take care.
So I get to sign off. Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at PodCenter at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.